My name is Charlotte Bennett. I was 29 years old when my phone vibrated on my desk at 4:17 p.m. on a Thursday and quietly split my life into a before and after. I remember the time because I checked it twice, not out of panic, but habit. I was still at work, staring at a spreadsheet I'd already reviewed 3 times. The office humming with that late afternoon lull where everyone pretends they're busy while mentally packing up for the day. The text was from my boyfriend. "We need to talk. I think I need a break to figure some things out." I didn't open it right away. I just watched the notification sit there, my reflection faintly staring back at me from the dark screen. My stomach dropped, but not in a dramatic movie scene way. It was quieter than that, like something loosening, detaching. A break, not a breakup, not an explanation, just space. We'd been together for 2.5 years, separate apartments, but most nights spent together, clothes in each other's closets, toothbrushes by the sink, conversations about moving in sometime next year, said casually, like a plan already halfway decided. Normal relationship stuff. And for the past 6 weeks, something had been off. He'd been distant, always on his phone, more nights out, later replies. The kind of changes you notice but talk yourself out of confronting because you don't want to be the paranoid girlfriend. Because you trust the person you're with, or at least you think you do. I typed back slowly, deliberately. Okay, take the time you need. 6 words, no questions, no pleading, no accusation. If he needed space, fine. I wasn't going to beg someone to stay. I hit send and leaned back in my chair, already bracing myself for whatever this break was actually going to mean. 3 minutes later, my phone buzzed again. Same contact, same calm font, different reality. Also, the woman I've been seeing is pregnant. It's not yours. I've been seeing someone else. I'm really sorry, but I thought you should know. I read it once, then again, then a third time, slower, like maybe the words would rearrange themselves into something less final if I gave them enough time. They didn't. The woman I've been seeing, pregnant, not yours. I didn't cry. I didn't gasp. I didn't feel anger rush in the way movies tell you it should. Instead, everything went cold. Not numb, clear, like someone had flipped a switch and shut down every unnecessary emotion, leaving only the parts of my brain designed to keep me functional. Survival mode. My mouse was still in my hand. I hadn't moved. A coworker passed behind my chair, paused, and leaned closer. "Charlotte, you okay?" I looked up, surprised my face still worked. "Yeah," I said. "Just need a minute." What I didn't say was that my relationship had just ended in 2 text messages, and somehow I'd skipped straight past heartbreak into something sharper, something focused. I took a screenshot. Both messages, timestamps visible, no missing context, no space for denial. I stared at the image for a long moment before typing my final reply. "Congratulations on your new journey. I wish you the best." I hit send, then I blocked him. Phone, Instagram, Facebook, everywhere. 30 seconds and he was gone. No dramatic confrontation, no screaming phone call, no drawn-out goodbye, just silence. But here's the thing about my now ex-boyfriend. He came from a very traditional family. Catholic, devout, structured. The kind of household where reputation mattered and mistakes followed you. His father was a retired Marine, a man who spoke calmly but carried authority in his voice, a man who shook hands firmly and believed in accountability. He went to church every Sunday, talked about responsibility like it was a moral obligation, not a suggestion. He'd always been kind to me, invited me to family cookouts, asked about my job, told me once, quietly, that he respected how I carried myself, that I was good for his son. I think he'd assumed I'd be around for a long time. And now his son had been cheating, had gotten another woman pregnant, and thought a break text would soften the blow. I stared at my phone again. I didn't feel vindictive. I didn't feel cruel. I felt finished. I opened a new message. His father's contact was still there. I attached the screenshot, the same one I'd saved seconds earlier, and typed carefully. "Sir, I thought you should see this. I'm sorry it had to come from me. Take care." I didn't add commentary. I didn't explain. I didn't defend myself. I hit send. Then I turned my phone to silent, shut down my computer, and walked out of the office like it was any other Thursday. The drive home felt surreal. Windows down, city noise blurring past, my hands steady on the wheel. No tears, no shaking, just the strange calm that comes when something painful is already over before you've had time to argue with it. At home, I changed into comfortable clothes, ordered takeout, and sat on my couch staring at a blank TV screen. I slept that night, deeply. What I didn't know, what I couldn't know yet, was that I'd just triggered a chain reaction, one that would light up my phone, tear through an entire family, and expose just how far my ex was willing to go to avoid owning the truth. But that would come later. For now, all I knew was this. I had told the truth. I had protected myself. And whatever happened next wasn't mine to carry anymore. I woke up the next morning to silence. No buzzing phone, no vibrating nightstand, no half-asleep panic. For a brief, disorienting moment, I wondered if I'd imagined everything. If the texts, the confession, the screenshot, if all of it had been some elaborate stress dream my brain had cooked up after a long week. Then I rolled over and saw my phone. 83 notifications, 23 missed calls, 14 voicemails. I exhaled slowly. So, it had begun. I didn't touch anything right away. I showered, made coffee, let the steam fog the mirror, while my mind stayed strangely clear. I knew, on some instinctive level, that once I opened my phone, I'd be stepping into chaos. And I wanted to meet it awake, grounded, not reactive. When I finally sat at my kitchen table and took my phone off silent, the screen lit up like it was alive. Most of the messages weren't from him. They were from numbers I didn't recognize. One text read, "Answer your phone. This is serious." Another, "Charlotte, this is his mother. We need to talk like adults." Another, less polite, "You had no right to tell his father. You ruined his life." I didn't respond to any of them. I scrolled. Missed calls from private numbers. From a friend of his I barely knew. From a number labeled only with a city code. And then there were the voicemails. I didn't listen to his first. I listened to his father's. The first voicemail was short, calm, measured. "Charlotte, this is Mr. Reynolds. I received your message. I need to confirm a few things. Please call me when you can." No anger, no accusation, just gravity. I sat back in my chair, fingers tightening around my coffee mug. The second voicemail came an hour later. "I've spoken to my son. He confirmed what you sent me is true. I appreciate your honesty. This is no longer your burden." That one landed heavier. The third voicemail came late that afternoon. "I'm sorry you were put in this position. You did the right thing. Focus on yourself. Take care." I stared at my wall for a long time after that, because disappointment sounds different when it's quiet. And that man, who had every reason to be angry, wasn't directing any of it at me. When I finally checked the rest of the messages, the pattern became clear. My ex had gone into full panic mode the moment his father confronted him. He tried to call me from his phone, then his friend's phone, then his mother's phone, each attempt more frantic than the last. One voicemail started apologetic. "Charlotte, please, we need to talk. I didn't mean for it to come out like that." Another turned sharp. "You had no right to go to my dad. That was private." Another dissolved into blame. "You didn't even give me a chance to explain." I deleted them all without responding. Because here's the thing, no one likes to admit. There was nothing left to explain. By Friday afternoon, pieces of the story started reaching me indirectly. His mother had contacted the woman he'd been seeing. A coworker, apparently. Someone he'd told a very different version of events to. According to what filtered back through mutual acquaintances, the woman admitted they'd been sleeping together for months. When asked about the pregnancy, "It could be his," she'd said. "But I don't know, and I'm not ready for this." Classic. He'd wanted the secrecy. She'd wanted the fantasy. Neither wanted the consequences. And now everything was out in the open. Late Friday evening, I finally listened to one voicemail from his mother. Her voice was tight, controlled, like someone holding a lid on something boiling. "Charlotte, while we are disappointed in how this situation unfolded, we understand that you were betrayed. Our son made choices. We won't be bothering you again." It was professional, cold. Exactly what you'd expect from people who'd just discovered their child wasn't who they thought he was. But my ex wasn't done. That night, a new message came in from yet another number. "You didn't have to tell my dad. You destroyed my relationship with my family. They won't even look at me," he cried. "Because of you. I hope you're happy." I stared at the screen, something inside me finally stirring. "Not guilt. Clarity," I replied once. "You destroyed your relationship with your family by cheating and getting another woman pregnant. You destroyed our relationship the same way. I told the truth. Lose this number." Then I blocked it. Again. I slept that night too. But somewhere between Friday and Sunday, I started to realize something unsettling. This wasn't just fallout. It was a rewrite. My ex wasn't just panicking. He was reshaping the story, framing himself as overwhelmed, confused, pressured. And me? I was becoming the villain. The woman who overreacted. The woman who went nuclear. The woman who couldn't keep things private. I didn't know yet how far he'd take that narrative, but I was about to find out. Sunday afternoon, 5 days after everything fell apart, my phone buzzed again. This time it wasn't a random number. It was his younger sister. We'd always been on decent terms. She wasn't dramatic, didn't rush to defend him the way the rest of the family usually did. If anyone in that house still cared about the truth more than appearances, it was her. Her message was careful. "Hey, Charlotte, can we talk? I'm not trying to take sides. I just want to understand what actually happened." I hesitated. I was already tired of explaining myself, tired of being the reasonable one, tired of carrying emotional labor for a situation I didn't create. But something about her wording felt honest. So I replied, "Okay." She called a minute later. "I'm not here to argue," she said quickly. What he's been saying doesn't fully make sense." So I told her exactly what happened. Not emotionally, not defensively. Just the timeline. The distance, the break text, the follow-up message, the confession that another woman was pregnant. My response, the screenshot. Why I sent it to their father. I didn't interrupt myself to justify anything. I didn't soften it. I didn't exaggerate. When I finished, there was silence on the line. Then she said quietly, "Yeah, that's not what he told us." I exhaled. "What did he tell you?" "That you pressured him. That you basically forced him to confess by threatening to tell our parents if he didn't." I actually laughed. Not out of humor, out of disbelief. "I didn't threaten him," I said. "He volunteered that information. I have screenshots." There was no hesitation. "Can you send them to me?" I did. Both messages. Clear timestamps. 3-minute gap. No messages from me in between. A few moments passed before she responded. "Wow, he's straight up lying." That was when I realized something important. This wasn't panic anymore. This was damage control. He wasn't trying to take responsibility. He was trying to recast himself as overwhelmed, confused, pressured by a woman who overreacted. His sister called me back. "I'm going to show them," she said. "Mom, Dad, everyone. They need to see this." "You can," I replied calmly. "But I'm stepping out after this. I'm done being involved." And I meant it. Tuesday night at around 9 p.m., someone started pounding on my apartment door. Not knocking. Pounding. I froze on my couch, my body instantly alert. Then I heard his voice. Raised, frantic, angry. "Charlotte, open the door! You can't just do this to me!" I didn't open it. I didn't answer. The noise continued long enough that I heard movement in the hallway. A neighbor's door opened, then closed again. A few minutes later, I heard sirens. When the police arrived, he immediately shifted tone. Suddenly calmer, suddenly emotional. "She's my fiancée," he told them. "We had an argument. She locked me out. All my stuff is in there." I opened the door then. Slowly, steady. "Officers," I said. "We broke up last week after he admitted he cheated and got another woman pregnant. He does not live here. This is my apartment. My name is the only one on the lease." I handed them my phone. The texts, the dates, the timeline. One officer read quietly. The other asked him a few questions he clearly wasn't prepared for. "Sir," the officer finally said, "you need to leave. This is not your residence." "But my things," he tried. "I already packed them," I said. I went inside, grabbed the bag I'd prepared days earlier, clothes, toiletries, nothing more, and handed it over. He dug through it, agitated. "Where's my tablet?" he demanded. "You're keeping it." "You never brought a tablet here," I replied. The officer looked at him. "Do you have proof you left one here?" He didn't, because there wasn't one. The officers escorted him out and warned him not to return. As they walked him away, he turned back and shouted, "You're going to regret this. My family has lawyers." One of the officers muttered, almost bored, "Everyone has lawyers." After they left, I filed a report, not because I was afraid, but because men who lie when cornered don't usually stop at one version of reality. And I had a feeling this wasn't over yet. By Wednesday, the lies had momentum. That's the dangerous thing about a half-truth told early. It doesn't need to be convincing. It just needs to be first. Once people emotionally invest in a version of events, facts feel like interruptions instead of corrections. I found out how far his version had spread without asking. A mutual acquaintance messaged me late that afternoon. "Hey, I don't want to get involved, but I figured you should know what's being said about you." I didn't respond right away. Another message followed. "He's telling people you went to his dad to punish him, that you were angry and wanted to humiliate him, that you're trying to ruin his reputation." I read that twice. Not because it surprised me, but because it explained everything that had happened since. The burner numbers, the sudden aggression, the entitlement. In his version of the story, he wasn't a man who cheated and got another woman pregnant. He was a man who made a mistake, and was then attacked by a woman who couldn't handle rejection. And I was the villain. That night, his sister called me again. I showed them the screenshots, she said. All of them. I waited. My dad didn't say much, she continued, but he asked him to explain the 3-minute gap, asked why there was no message from you in between, asked why the pregnancy came up only after the break text. I could picture it perfectly. A man who valued structure, confronted with a timeline that didn't bend. He didn't have answers, she added quietly. I closed my eyes. Thank you for telling me, I said, but I don't want updates anymore. I understand, she replied. I just wanted you to know the truth is out now. He can't rewrite it anymore. She was wrong about that. He could rewrite it. He just couldn't rewrite it inside his family. Outside of that, he was still trying. Thursday morning, I got an email from him. Not a text, not a call. An email. Long, carefully written, measured. He said he was sorry for how things unfolded, that he'd been confused and overwhelmed, that he never meant to hurt anyone. He said I'd acted impulsively, that involving his father had escalated things unnecessarily, that we both played a role in how chaotic this became. That line almost made me laugh. We both played a role. He ended it with, I hope someday you can see this from my perspective. I didn't reply, because here's the truth he couldn't stand. There was no perspective from which cheating and getting another woman pregnant while in a committed relationship became a misunderstanding. There was no angle where that became mutual fault. By Friday, the cracks in his story started showing publicly. People talk, coworkers notice, friends compare notes. The woman he'd been seeing, the one who was pregnant, was suddenly very quiet on social media. No more vague inspirational quotes, no more curated happiness. Because once his family knew, the pressure shifted. Questions started coming from places he couldn't control. Was the baby definitely his? Had he told her the truth about me? How long had it been going on? And for the first time, he wasn't in charge of the narrative anymore. That night, another message came in from an unknown number. Short, defensive. I never said you were a bad person. I just said you didn't need to take it that far. I stared at the screen, something settling into place. This was the final form of his denial. Not I didn't do it. Not it didn't happen. But you made it worse by telling the truth. I didn't respond. Because the truth doesn't argue. It waits. And it always catches up. By the weekend, the noise around his name had shifted. It wasn't loud anymore. It was uneasy. That's how you know a story is starting to fall apart. Not when people argue about it, but when they stop defending it out loud. When conversations lower in volume. When no one wants to be quoted. I felt it before I saw it. Saturday afternoon, my building's front desk called my phone. Hi, Ms. Bennett, the doorman said carefully. There's a man downstairs asking for you. He says he knows you. I already knew who it was. I'm not expecting anyone, I replied. Please tell him I'm unavailable. There was a pause. He's insisting, the doorman added. He looks upset. Then please ask him to leave, I said evenly. If he doesn't, call building security. I hung up and sat very still on my couch. 10 minutes later, my phone buzzed again. Unknown number. I just want to talk. You can't keep avoiding me forever. I didn't respond. Another message followed. You're letting everyone think I'm a monster. That one almost got me. Not because it hurt, but because it revealed exactly what he was afraid of. Not losing me, not the baby, not his family's disappointment. His image. He tried again that evening. Different number, different tone. I didn't plan any of this. Things just got complicated. You know I'm not a bad person. I set my phone face down. Because here's the part men like him never understand. Once a woman has emotionally exited, access is no longer guaranteed. Sunday morning, I found out what complicated actually meant. His sister texted me one final time before I blocked her too. Just so you're not blindsided, he's moving back home for now. Dad insisted. The situation with the other woman is worse than he admitted. I didn't ask for details, but they arrived anyway. The pregnancy was real. The timeline overlapped more than he'd confessed, and the woman had assumed, incorrectly, that he was going to step up and play family with her. Now that fantasy was collapsing too. By Monday, the story he'd tried to sell had nowhere left to go. At work, people noticed his sudden absence. HR started asking questions. Dating within the same department wasn't allowed. Someone had flagged it. The woman was transferred. He was put under review. And suddenly, no one wanted to be publicly associated with either of them. That night, I got one last voicemail from him. His voice sounded different. Not angry, not defensive. Smaller. I know you hate me, he said, but you didn't have to tell my dad. That part still feels like a betrayal. I deleted it without listening to the rest. Because betrayal isn't telling the truth. Betrayal is lying and expecting silence to protect you. I went to bed early that night, not exhausted, relieved. Because for the first time since the text at 4:17 p.m., I felt something close to peace. The chaos was no longer reaching for me. It was folding inward, where it belonged. Wednesday evening, my phone rang while I was cooking dinner. Not an unknown number this time. His mother. I stared at the screen longer than I should have. I hadn't blocked her, not because I wanted to hear from her, but because part of me knew this call was coming. When a family like theirs implodes, someone always tries to fix the parts they can still reach. I answered. "Charlotte," she said, her voice careful, practiced. "I know you don't want to hear from us, but I was hoping we could talk for a moment." I turned the stove down and leaned against the counter. "I'm listening," I said. Not inviting, not hostile, neutral. She exhaled, like she'd been holding her breath since the phone started ringing. "This situation has been devastating," she began. "For everyone, especially with a baby involved." There it was, the pivot. "I understand this is painful for you," she continued, "but he's still carrying a lot of shame. He's scared. He's made mistakes, yes, but he's still our son." I let the silence stretch, because if I interrupted, she'd keep going. "And the other woman," she added, softer now, "she's frightened. She doesn't have much support. We're trying to navigate this in a way that aligns with our faith." I took a slow breath. "None of that involves me," I said calmly. There was a pause. "I know," she replied, "but I worry that things escalated so quickly, involving his father right away. It made everything explode." I closed my eyes for a moment, not in anger, in clarity. "Respectfully," I said, "your son cheated on me for months and got another woman pregnant. I didn't escalate anything. I revealed it." Another pause. Longer this time. "She's still carrying a child," she said again, as if repetition might change reality. "She needs stability, and he's spiraling. He feels like everything was taken from him overnight." "He lost the version of himself that wasn't real," I replied. The words landed harder than I intended, but I didn't take them back. "I didn't expose him out of revenge," I continued. "I did it because he would have lied, and he already was lying. To you, to your husband, to everyone." Her voice dropped. "I raised him better than this." "I believe you did," I said, "but he's an adult. These were his choices." The line went quiet. When she spoke again, her tone had shifted, less defensive, more resigned. "You're right," she said softly. I think I just needed to hear it out loud." "I'm sorry you're dealing with this," I added, and I meant it, but I can't be part of the solution to a problem I didn't create. She thanked me for answering, for being decent, for not yelling. We hung up. I stood in my kitchen for a long moment after that, staring at nothing. It felt strange, being validated by the very people whose family I'd just stepped out of forever. But validation wasn't relief. Distance was. Friday evening, 1 week exactly after the text, his father called. I almost didn't answer, but I did. "Charlotte," he said, "just a quick call. I wanted you to know, we've seen everything. The real messages, the timelines. What he said doesn't match reality." I listened quietly. "We're handling it," he continued. "He's moving back home, preparing to take responsibility. The baby's situation is complicated, but that's his burden now, not yours." I swallowed. "Thank you for telling me," I said. "You handled this with integrity," he added. "I wish my son had done the same." That was the moment something finally loosened inside me. Not satisfaction. Closure. After we hung up, I blocked the last remaining numbers connected to him and his family. All of them. I didn't need updates anymore. The truth had landed. And I was free to step away. I thought that would be the end of it. I had blocked every number connected to him, his family, anyone who might try to act as a bridge. The silence felt intentional, earned. But chaos doesn't disappear all at once. It echoes. About a week later, a notification appeared on my phone from an unfamiliar Instagram account. No profile picture, no posts, just a username that looked randomly generated. The message was long. Too long. He wrote about pressure, about how everything had moved too fast, about how the situation with the pregnancies was more complicated than it looked, about how he never meant for it to happen this way. Then the tone shifted. He said maybe we shouldn't have ended things so definitively, that maybe we could talk like adults, that my reaction had locked him into a situation he didn't know how to handle. I read the message once, then again, and that was the moment I understood it clearly. This wasn't remorse. It was panic. He wasn't trying to take responsibility. He was trying to pull me back into the mess, into sharing the weight of consequences that were never mine to carry. I didn't respond. I took a screenshot. Then I blocked the account. No forwarding, no commentary, no engagement. 2 days later, he tried again, this time through LinkedIn. A connection request. No message, no explanation. Just another attempt to bypass boundaries under the disguise of professionalism. I declined it. Then blocked him there too. That should have been the end. But desperation makes people reckless. The following weekend, I received a message on Facebook from a name I recognized immediately, the woman who was pregnant. The message was careful, measured. Charlotte, I know this is inappropriate, but I wanted you to hear it from me. I didn't know he was still with you when we got involved. He told me things were basically over. I'm not asking for anything. I just wanted to say I'm sorry. I stared at the screen for a long moment, not because I doubted her, but because I recognized the pattern. Even now, responsibility was being redistributed, shifted sideways, softened. I replied once, "Please don't contact me again." Then I blocked her. That was it. No more screenshots, no more explanations, no more messengers. The story no longer belonged to me. What happened next reached me indirectly, the kind of information you absorb without seeking out. Quiet conversations, mutual acquaintances, the slow settling of truth. The pregnancy was confirmed. A paternity test followed. The baby wasn't his. The reality still landed hard. The woman involved panicked. She prepared for the baby alone. Financial support was discussed. Emotional commitment was not. The fantasy collapsed. My ex moved back in with his parents. Started working from home because facing coworkers felt unbearable. His father barely spoke to him. His mother hovered somewhere between disappointment and obligation. The house he grew up in became quiet. Not peaceful. Heavy. As for me, I went to therapy. Not because I was falling apart, but because I didn't want unresolved anger following me forward. I talked through the betrayal, the shock, the strange guilt I'd felt for telling the truth even though I knew it was the right thing. I reconnected with friends, fixed things around my apartment, let my life breathe again. One night, a friend asked me if I regretted sending that screenshot to his father. I didn't hesitate. No, I said, not for a second. Because if I hadn't, he would have lied. He would have rewritten the story. He would have painted himself as the victim and me as the villain. I just made sure the truth arrived first. And once it did, I walked away. The last message came when I wasn't expecting it. That's usually how they do. 2 days after everything finally went quiet, after the blocks held, after the echoes faded, I was folding laundry on a Sunday evening when my phone buzzed with a notification from an unfamiliar number. I didn't open it right away. There was something about the timing that felt intentional, like someone standing outside a locked door, waiting for the exact moment they thought you might be tired enough to unlock it. I let the phone sit there. Then I picked it up. I know you probably hate me. I just wanted to say I'm sorry for everything. You didn't deserve any of this. I handled things wrong. I hope someday you can forgive me. No excuses this time. No reframing. No attempt to pull me back in. Just an apology. I read it once, then again. And instead of anger or sadness or even satisfaction, I felt nothing. That was the turning point. Not the police, not his father's call, not the public collapse of his carefully managed image. This, the absence of reaction. I realized then that whatever power he thought he still had, whatever emotional leverage he was hoping to reclaim, it was gone, completely. I didn't reply. I didn't block the number either. I just let it exist for a moment, like a ghost that didn't know it was already dead. Then I deleted the message. Not out of cruelty, out of clarity. Forgiveness, if it ever came, wouldn't be something I handed out on demand. And closure didn't require a response. Later that night, I went for a walk. The city was quiet in that way it only gets when everyone else is home, wrapped up in their own lives. Streetlights hummed. Windows glowed softly. Somewhere nearby, someone laughed. Life continuing. I thought about how close I'd come to a future that would have been built on lies. How easily I could have been pulled into fixing a mess that wasn't mine. How often women are expected to be understanding, accommodating, forgiving, especially when a man claims he's learned his lesson. But learning a lesson doesn't undo damage, and remorse doesn't obligate reconciliation. When I got home, I slept better than I had in weeks. Not because everything was resolved, but because I was. 3 weeks passed. Not dramatically, not ceremoniously, just quietly. That's how things really end, not with explosions, but with distance stretching so wide it becomes permanent. I didn't hear from him again. No new numbers, no emails, no last-ditch apologies dressed up as self-reflection. The silence stayed intact. What I learned afterward came secondhand, the way information always does when you've stepped far enough away, shared in fragments, offered without emotion. Easy to accept, easy to ignore. He was still living with his parents, still working from home, still avoiding anyone who might ask questions he didn't want to answer. The woman who was pregnant had moved back closer to her own family. She was preparing for the baby mostly on her own. Support existed, but it was conditional, strained, quiet. No happy ending there, just reality. His father kept his distance, not in anger, in disappointment. The kind that doesn't fade quickly, the kind that changes how someone sees you forever. His mother tried to hold everything together, tried to make peace where there wasn't any, tried to believe this was just a chapter, not a defining trait. Families do that. As for me, life expanded again. Not all at once, but steadily. I filled my weekends with things that didn't require emotional explanation. Long walks, dinner with friends, projects I'd put off because I'd been busy prioritizing someone else's stability over my own. I stopped replaying conversations in my head, stopped wondering what I could have done differently, stopped carrying responsibility for choices that were never mine. One afternoon, a friend asked me if I'd ever forgive him. I thought about it. Not the apology, not the betrayal, not even the fallout. But the moment everything crystallized, when I realized the truth had arrived exactly where it needed to, and I no longer had to stay. Maybe, I said honestly, but forgiveness doesn't mean access, and it doesn't mean reconciliation. It just means letting go, and I already had. The strangest part was how ordinary my life felt afterward. No revenge, no justice fantasy, no dramatic payoff. Just peace. I found out who he really was before I built a future around it, before shared finances, before vows, before children. That mattered. If there was a lesson in all of this, it wasn't about exposure or punishment. It was about boundaries, about telling the truth once and then refusing to manage the consequences for anyone else. Some people think I was harsh, that I should have walked away quietly, let him handle his family on his own terms. But those people don't understand how easily silence can be weaponized against you, how fast the truth gets rewritten when the wrong person controls the story. I didn't destroy anything. I stopped protecting a lie. And in doing that, I protected myself. Now, when I think of him, there's no anger, just distance. He's a person I used to know, someone who made choices and lives with them. I'm living my life. And honestly, that's the best ending I could have asked for.